Hey everybody, welcome back to Baking with Rosehill Sourdough. I'm Mike and we've got a really good one for you today. My friend Ashlyn Joy is going to be showing you how to make my famous sourdough discard biscuits. Now just as a reminder, sourdough discard is anything that's been fed over 24 hours ago. It could be in your fridge for the last month and you can still use it to make this sourdough recipe. If it's been in there that long, just remember to pour off all the stuff at the top, maybe scrape down a little bit to get all the stuff off the top off. The rest of it is good to go. You can use that in this recipe and then refresh it so you can make some bread. All right, so let's cut to Ashlyn. She's gonna be showing you how to make these biscuits. Take it away, Ashlyn.
Hi, I'm Ashlyn, and today we're making buttermilk biscuits with sourdough discard from Baking with Rosehill Sourdough. To start, you're gonna take 170 grams of discard and put that in a bowl. And then to that, we're going to add 170 grams of buttermilk. We'll whisk that together until it's nice and combined. And then we're gonna pop this in the fridge while we make the rest of the ingredients. All right, now we're gonna mix our dry ingredients and then add in the butter. So I'm gonna do this in a food processor today because I live in a very hot climate and we want our butter to stay cold, and this is gonna help it stay cold. You can also do it by hand or use a pastry cutter. All right, to that, we're gonna add 10 grams of kosher salt, 16 grams of baking powder, and 3 grams of baking soda. We're gonna pulse that together quickly just so that gets combined. All right, now that that's combined, we're gonna add in our cold butter. I cubed this already because it's just easier to incorporate that way. We're gonna add that in and pulse that together a few times as well. That looks pretty good. We got some chunkier pieces of butter still, but it's mostly combined and it'll get more combined on our next step. All right, so now we've got our buttermilk and sourdough discard mixture, and we're gonna add our flour and butter to this. It's okay if there are some larger pieces of butter because it's all gonna come together when we laminate the dough. All right, next we're gonna fold this together just to start to hydrate the flour. The key here is you wanna keep the butter cold because if it melts, you won't get the flaky layers that you want in your biscuit. It's not all gonna come together on this step, but you do wanna try to kind of mix it together as much as you can. At this point, I like to go in with my hands and start to kind of make sure that they're not like super wet spots anywhere, and really try to hydrate the flour evenly. You can see there's still some chunks of butter. They're a pretty good size. And if you see those, you can kind of squash them, but they will get mixed in. Now I'm gonna flour my work surface and dump this dough onto the counter. It's not gonna hold together. Do not worry, it will come together, I promise. Now we're gonna bring this dough together. We're gonna start squishing it to bring it together, and then we're gonna start our lamination process. Right now it's kind of a shaggy, crumbly mess, but it will get evenly hydrated, and then we're gonna layer in, the butter will get layered in through the lamination process. If at any point you feel like your butter is getting too soft, you can just transfer this to a sheet pan and throw it in your fridge. You do want the butter to stay cold though. So now I'm gonna add a little more flour to the top of the dough. Again, it's not gonna be like an even thickness right now or an even cohesive dough. Roll it out to a roughly 12-inch shape, but it does not have to be exact because we're just gonna layer it together. All right, here comes the lamination process. We're gonna cut this into 9 squares, and then we're gonna layer them on top of each other. My dough is pretty crumbly right now, and that's okay. We're just gonna gently stack our squares, and you gotta trust the process because it will come together. I find it's easier to kind of press down as you go, especially at this point when your dough is still pretty crumbly. And you can use your bench scraper to kind of keep the sides straight so things don't just like crumble to the ground. This is the crumbliest bit right here. Just gonna squish that together and add it to this top of my stack. I'm gonna put a little bit more flour down just because we don't want it to stick. And now we're gonna squish and roll it out again. So that was the first batch of lamination, and we're gonna repeat the process one more time. I like to use my bench scraper to kind of help me hold it into shape if it starts to crumble. Make sure it's not sticking, add a little flour as needed. All right, see how that's coming together a lot more? The butter is kind of getting streaked out like that, and that is gonna cause those layers to form. All right, now we're gonna take our bench scraper and cut this into 9 semi-even, does not have to be perfect, squares. Now we're gonna stack these up again. You can kind of see the layers forming already, and this is just gonna multiply them. Got our nice big stack here. Squish that down, and then we're gonna keep rolling, and we're gonna get ready to cut out our biscuits. I like to squish the stack down because I find it easier to get it into a more manageable shape before I start to roll. Again, you can use your bench scraper to kind of hold the pieces together, and then we're gonna start to roll. Adding flour as you need to. It's pretty warm in here, so my butter is melting fast. And if you find that happening, you can throw the whole thing in the fridge, or you can even chill the biscuits before you bake them. You wanna make sure the butter stays as cold as possible. Otherwise, it'll just leak out when it gets in the oven, and you won't get those nice flaky layers. Rotate my dough, make sure it's not sticking too much, until we're about a ½ inch thick, I'd say. And at this point, you can either do some rustic square biscuits and cut them into 9 again, or if you want a more classic round biscuit, we're gonna use a circle cutter or a biscuit cutter to cut these up. Depending on what size you use, you'll get like 9 to 12 biscuits, I think. That looks good. Making sure it's not sticking. You can always throw some flour underneath if you need to. And now I'm going to flour my biscuit cutter, which really won't do anything until you cut the first one, because then it'll be kind of tacky. I'm gonna roll this out a little bit more. All right, so you're just gonna push straight down. I heard that if you twist it, it can make the layers kind of get stuck together, so you just wanna push straight down and not twist, and then reflour your circle cutter as you go. I'm gonna try to get as many from this as possible, and you can always re-roll if you need to. Now we're gonna take these and put them in a cast iron skillet and brush them with some melted butter. All right, so we got our biscuits here. You can see the layers of butter laminated in the dough, and that's what's gonna give them their rise. The baking powder and baking soda will help with that as well. But the butter being laminated in really gives them the flakiness. All right, so now we're gonna brush them with some melted butter, and they're gonna go in the oven at 425 for I think 12-ish minutes. Look at our beautiful flaky biscuits. They're a little leany, but that's okay. Just means they're homemade. This is our star biscuit. Look at those flaky layers. They're beautiful. All right, I'm gonna have one with butter. Ooh, yes. And some strawberry rhubarb jam. They also make fantastic breakfast sandwiches and are great with biscuits and gravy as well. That's delicious. I hate you.
How great did those biscuits look? They look so good. Ashlyn did an amazing job. I'm so jealous of you and those biscuits. I wish I was there with you to enjoy them with you. Hey, if this is your first time making this recipe, you're clearly not an old pro like Ashlyn, take that flour and butter, make sure just a little bit farther, grind up that butter just a little bit more. You can see in the beginning, Ashlyn had some trouble working with that dough. There was no trouble at all for her. She clearly knows what she's doing. She's made these biscuits before, and she knows if you grind that a little bit more, the dough will be easier to work with, but you might not get as defined layers like she got. So she went with the more coarsely ground butter, and the dough was a little bit more difficult to work with. She got the payoff, which is these amazing flaky buttery biscuits. If this is your first time doing it though, take that mixture just a little bit further. The dough will be a little bit easier for you to work with, all right? Huge thank you to Ashlyn for making these biscuits and showing you how to make them. If you liked her, go and follow her on Instagram at AshlynJoy for more of her amazing food content. And thank you for being here with me. Come back real soon and we'll be baking some fun stuff together again, okay? See you again soon. Bye-bye.